Next up, we're going to play some video of the vigil that you described, Hannah. You want to set it up? We're going to play a little bit of the vigil that took place last week, 24 hours outside the American Zionist Association.
Yeah, the World Zionist Organization and the Jewish Agency. So we were there for 24 hours. People came and went. Some stayed for an hour, some for 24 hours, and you'll see it now.
All right. Thanks a lot. You're watching GRITtv.
Today we're in front of actually two organizations, the Jewish Agency as well as the World Zionist Organization, both of which are part of the support that Israel enjoys from the United States on top of the billions of dollars that is received in aid from the United States government. There's also huge amounts of money that are being transferred privately from American Jews to Israel.
Inside this building are the Jewish Agency and the World Zionist Organization, both organizations with ongoing policies of supporting Israel, whatever they do. The World Zionist Organization in particular funding settlement construction inside the West Bank on clearly Palestinian land, continuing to this day, these policies.
Where does the money come from for these organizations?
A lot of the money comes from Jewish philanthropists and Jewish individuals. Also, the Israeli government funds the Jewish Agency. The World Zionist Organization gets funding, I believe, from individual members as well.
Why we're out here as Jews against Israeli occupation. Why we're out here as Jews against the Israeli occupation.
I was appalled by what Israel is doing in Gaza. I had a sabbatical in Israel 2 years ago at Haifa University at the Institute for Arab and Jewish Studies, and was just really taken by the injustice of the occupied territories, the treatment of Arabs within Israel, and then most recently the invasion of Gaza. It felt very important that as Jews we speak up and not retreat from this issue, even though indeed it is not so easy to raise this issue in the U.S. within the Jewish community. Israel calls itself a democracy, but it's a theocracy, so it's a democracy for Jews, but Arabs have substantially restricted access around roads and hospitals and doctors and schools and public services and representation. So you can't have a Jewish state if 20% of your people aren't Jewish. It ends up creating a perversely two-tiered system, even within Israel, much less what's going on in the occupied territories and now in Gaza.
One of the shocking things to us when we were in Israel, that no one, no matter where they were on the political spectrum, denied the apartheid, but many justified it, that this is what Israelis were saying they had to do. And there was no denying of the second-class citizenship, and that was very, very sobering to us.
Jimmy Carter's discussion of apartheid was not hyperbole.
I'm a Jewish woman who spent most of her life doing civil rights work in the South. I was in the South for 20 years. And when I went to Israel, I was profoundly shocked to my heart at what I saw in the West Bank and Gaza. When you go on the West Bank, there's separate roads for Palestinians and Israelis. When you go through the checkpoints, there's separate paths for the Palestinians and the Israelis and the foreigners. You go to Jerusalem, and it looks pretty good until you go to East Jerusalem, and then there's potholes and garbage, and no city services. So, does this sound familiar? Does this look familiar to me? Yes.
Jews have to speak up for justice. I think it's a shame how Israel's used as a cover that Jews cannot criticize Israel, no matter what Israel does. And I think what Israel is doing now is atrocious. Is for all the social justice reasons Michelle talked about, but also just guaranteeing another generation of war. I think we have to have a voice as Jewish Americans that there is not this blind support for Israel, that the U.S. government has to put checks and balances on Israel, that the U.S. government with the new administration has an opportunity with George Mitchell to really make Israel accountable and to make the U.S. accountable. No more blank checks, which is what's been happening since 1948.
I think it was the Gaza invasion that really threw me over the edge. I mean, I've been critical before of some of Israeli policies, but that really threw me over the edge.
I think what this massacre has done is, for many people, it's really have started to question more and more about the history, about what we've learned, about what we've been taught.
So I don't deny that anti-Semitism is an issue. And certainly after World War II, after the Nazi Holocaust, I understand why people supported wanting a Jewish homeland. You know, you can see it. If all these countries were rejecting Jews from coming in, and I'm a refugee. I came to the United States in 1945, Christmas Day, and we were lucky we got out, and we got into the United States through kind of a fluke of history. But I can understand at the end of World War II, I understand why my family wanted a Jewish homeland. But by now, people should know better. You know, this is that many, I can understand in 1945. By now, people should have learned that this was not the answer, and that this land was not empty. Land without people for people without land was a myth that was created and built on and exaggerated over the years with this whole thing of the orange groves. Horrible, horrible. One of those myths of history that created so much damage.
It's an oppressive policy. It's a case of, I think, the abused becoming abusers.
A lot of people will be very offended at you saying that.
Well, I don't know why. They are abusing. They are abusing the Palestinian people. I think they are following a policy which will lead to genocide of the Palestinians.
I think we all know that since 1948 has not worked, so we have to move forward.
We need to get involved in movements for boycott, for divestment, and for sanctions against Israel. It worked in South Africa. We're looking at an apartheid system in terms of what's happening in Israel, if not even more stark. And we need to organize we succeeded within the U.S. in terms of making an impact and supporting the global movement against apartheid in South Africa. We need to do that here.
And we're looking at Hampshire was the first college that just divested fully from Israel. They were the first college that divested from South Africa. So I think that's a very promising and exciting victory. And I think we need to figure out what is it going to take to continue that with other universities.
The reason I have so much hope in it, as well as it being called by Palestinians and the fact that it's growing so much, is that it's very broad. So you have boycott, you have divestment, you have sanctions. People can work on that issue in whatever institution they're part of. They can encourage that institution to look into investments that they have or relationships that they have with Israel, with institutions benefiting from occupation. They can individually boycott. They can go to the store and say, I'm not going to buy Sabra hummus, or I'm not going to buy, these Israeli tomatoes or cucumbers. And they can lobby. They can lobby the U.S. government to stop giving $10 million a day to Israel. They can lobby against the arms, or for the Arms Act, that says that the arms that the U.S. gives to foreign countries can't be used in illegal ways. Israel's using them in illegal ways. There's all different ways to implement this boycott, divestment, and sanctions strategy.
That's what I have to do as a Jew. And these organizations, like the World Zionist Organization and the Israeli Consulate, claim to speak for all the Jews in the world. No matter where we live, they speak for us. And there are significant numbers of Jews who find this all appalling.
That tape brought to us by the independent filmmaker Kouros Esmaili of Big Noise Films. Thanks, Kouros.